How has the market been pre-budget versus conversations you might have had post-budget? Because it'd be interesting to know from your point of view, more hyper-local. I'm always a bit of a data geek, so I've got some stats as well to kind of throw into the mix. But what's the sort of general feeling from talking to other agents and clients at the moment?
I think there was a lot of oxygen given to this budget, and probably quite rightly so, because of how past budgets have gone. So I think there was a nervousness before it from all sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably a bit of a sigh of relief and a keep calm and carry on feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because of the timing of it being so close to Christmas, it puts us in quite a weird space, because we've had 2-3 months of speculation. What will change? Will it change? Won't it change? And then it's kind of been and gone, and we're now like, oh, okay, it's Christmas. Are people in the market now? They wait until the new year. Yeah. Is now the time? Is next year the time? So it's, I'd say the timing, and it means different things to different people, and I think it's quite difficult for somebody to, if somebody's been sat on the fence for 3 months, is what I'm saying, they're probably thinking now, I'm going to wait until the new year. But it's,
which we really hope they weren't going to be doing.
Yeah,
but it genuinely does feel that that's the case, because we'd hoped for a stronger tick up of buyer activity, and we've got some really great listings at what we feel are the right prices on the market. And I think the buyer pool is very much thinking new year, fresh start, rather than go in and try and secure something at the end of the year. Whereas actually going out and viewing and trying to secure a sale now would probably serve you a lot better.
I'm curious to know if that conflicts with your statistics.
I knew that obviously we were coming in to talk about Wokingham a little bit, and my assumption was that Wokingham is a classic kind of baby bloomer market town, relatively wealthy, quite active people, and I would imagine those are the towns that the budget lead up would have hindered more, because it would have had more of an impact to them, as maybe it would do a town where there is less baby boomers and less equity in properties and less savings in bank accounts, and less residential as well, maybe more tenant-led or housing association-led. So if you look at Wokingham as one of those classic kind of traditional market town sort of British markets, I did think it would have held off. And from a country perspective, if we look at listings in the 6 weeks up to the day of the budget nationally, were there more or less than the year before? There was 3.5% less nationally. There was 10% less for Wokingham. So what that means in my head is there's 10% of what would have come to the market at least, and actually most of the year we were up on listings compared to last year, so you could argue 15% if you're adding the 5 different swing. So there's 15% of potential Wokingham people that have held off, plus the new activity that comes in January. So I would imagine there'll be a lot of properties coming to the market in January. And if I was a person thinking of moving in the new year, that's good, because it means there's more availability for me. But what I want to be is in the competitive market as a buyer, not as the seller, which means if I get under offer early, get my house on the market quicker, and I sell faster, I'm in the power position. If I find one of those new listings in January and I'm not even on the market,
you're so far behind.
You're in the wrong place for the chicken and egg. So that was quite interesting for Wokingham. And in the same way, sold subject to contract units, was it any different? 83% of properties that came to the market in that 6 weeks sold in Wokingham. Nationally, 83% the same time last year sold. And if we look at from a UK statistic, it's 80 and 80. So Wokinham's 3% better than the national, but they are exactly the same. So buyer demand is exactly the same nationally compared to last year, but there's way less on the market compared to where we were. So that kind of reads what comes next for the Wokingham market, I think, in a sort of data-based way.
Yeah, and we've been having lots of those conversations with sellers about going into next year. How do you play your move? Obviously, we're advising people to sell first before they find their house, so they're in the best position. And what struck me about this whole budget fiasco that's been going on the last month is how how easy and how quickly people are able to build up their own narrative in their head of what may or may not happen. And now the budget's over, we're starting to have conversations with people who are saying, oh, well, it will pick up in the new year now. And when the new year comes along, it'll be like, oh, well, the market picks up in the spring, and then spring will come along and there'll be some political event going on. And there's always that next thing. So I think we're definitely trying to speak to clients and talk about just control what you can control, focus on your house. You can choose how you price it. You can choose the agent you work with. You can't control the budget. You can't control interest rates. So just trying to really just hone in on your own circumstances, because whatever the stats say, your individual sale is one individual sale, and you can buck the trend with how you approach that sale. So it's been interesting listening to everyone's different stories, and they start to I think sometimes you can read too much into the macro environment and not focus enough on the micro.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and the Wokingham market is always a strong market comparison to what else is going on. It's normally if you think of a radar heat map, it's normally quite a hot central part of it. And again, in that 6 weeks window, the average time to sale, 61 days. Say Wokingham, I'm taking postcode data from RG41 and RG40 is when I talk Wokingham. Nationally, 78 days. So over 2 weeks quicker than national average in Wokingham to go under offer. And if we looked at what that was in 2024, it was 65 days. So it's 4 days faster in the same period. Nationally, it was actually quicker. It was 73 days. So nationals got slower. Wokinham's got faster, which is positive signs for Wokingham as well. And fall through ratios, same time period. If we look at RG41, RG40, 24% ratio as it stands at the moment, or percentage at the moment, versus 29 this time last year. The same for the national average, 25%. So it all paints a good picture for those postcodes if you're living in there. I don't think you should be hesitant. From a land registry point of view, last year there was 1.1 million completions in the UK. This year it's forecast to be about 1.1. Same.
Yeah.
The only real thing that came out of the budget for the housing is the £2 million
mansion tax.
Yeah. And again, I've got the data for you on that. There's been 4 of those complete in those postcodes this year. It's a grand total of 0.4% of those postcodes market. And it doesn't happen until 2028 anyway.
Exactly that.
So if you're living in your 3-bed semi in Montague Park, don't worry about it.
Really don't worry about it. Or even if you've got a nice big 4-bedroom detached house in Keepash, still don't worry about it. You're not going to be there. Yeah, absolutely right. It's and then we saw the stats for the £1 million market and what that looked like in Wokingham across RG40 and RG41. There's clearly been not an uptick in instructions, but certainly some of the estate agents that would have looked after that market originally are now sort of coming down. There's a couple of new leading players in there, but there's still not hundreds of those units that go through every year. There's still a smaller percentage, much smaller percentage, and makes up a much smaller value of the properties that are sold in Wokingham. And it still proves that sort of 600 to £1 million bracket in Wokingham probably sits at a really nice place for most of the business to be performed in. 600 to £1 million freehold property, because there's so much of that within the new builds that are out there as well at the moment. Maybe so that's a 500 to £1 million bracket. And I still think that's your core market in Wokingham. And that's a really lovely place to be, because what it does is it gives the people that, because there's still a lot of flats and lots of small houses, it gives everybody the same chance to stay in Wokingham if they want to. It's not one area that only has 2-bedroom houses. There are a real mix of lots of different areas and types of property, which really suits and satisfies a lot of different buyers. And with everything that's happened in Wokingham over the past few years with the regeneration, I feel like I've talked about this enough, but with the regeneration and the road networks and everything else that they've done, there is so much for everybody in Wokingham that it's actually a place that I think once you buy there, you never really move out.
And I think for Wokingham as a market, it feels like a long time ago now, but when the stamp duty holiday came in up to 500k, where you could save £15,000, Wokingham is a market where that had a massive influence on a town like Wokingham, because there are so many properties that sit between 400 and 600. It had a massive impact. And what we saw in that year was, I think it was about 1.56 million transactions that year. So normally in an average year for the UK over the last 20 years, it's 1.2 million. But that kind of freak year where everyone moved, and we've all got family and friends that all moved, they moved their moving plans forward by 3 years to save the 15k.
grand,
And we all know those people. And what then we saw was 1 million transactions, 1.1 million. But now, the year after that, you saw people got premium prices, because you remember it was an absolute bum fight to get those 4-bed detached properties. And they were selling, and we're going, how has that gone up 80 grand in 3 months? And then the next year they all struggled because they were overpriced, effectively, and it crumbled the whole market in that Wokingham average sort of mid-market. That's all kind of petered through now, and this year's more normal on that basis. And I think next year we'll see closer to the 1.2 million transactions in 2026. But for Wokingham, that 3 years of that stamp duty has had such an influence that now that's all out the way. Everyone knows where they stand. It's a bit more level. And really a tough market. People say, what's a tough market? A tough market is not when prices are dropping or going up. It's when buyer and sellers are misaligned. That's when the challenge comes in for us as estate agents. Everyone knows where they are. The news is all a bit rubbish. The budget was a bit meh. Buyers are a little bit negative, sellers are a bit negative. It's kind of everyone's a bit on that level playing field. That's a much nicer market for buyers and sellers because they're kind of aligned. All right, it's all normal. That makes everything a bit of a better market, regardless of whether the prices are growing 5, 10 or 0.5% a year. When there's an alignment with buyers and sellers, that's where it becomes a bit easier.
And you also get the buyer say that the buyers are always worried about what an end value of a property is going to be like in 5 years' time, because they're always thinking that, am I paying more for a house than it's going to be worth in 5 years' time? And generally speaking, when you've got these markets where they're relatively, I put stable as the explanation mark behind it, stable, you're not going to lose money, you're not going to make loads of money, but the value of the house is going to remain roughly the same. And I think if anybody could go that way, they would probably be happy. Everyone wants to make more money on their house once they buy it. And if you can make a little bit of money to cover your ancillary costs when you come to sell it in bits and pieces, if it's 2 years, then great. But no one wants to lose money. No one wants to lose money, and unfortunately, I think the area of market that's probably been hit the most over the past couple of years is because over the past 5 to 10 years, there's been so much new development built in Wokingham, and the flat market was so overpopulated with properties that come to the market. I think it's only the flat market that's seen that negative value take over the past probably 2 to 3 years when they're looking to come and sell, and it's just the leasehold transactions that have probably been the ones there. We haven't been able to grab as much money for them as possible, but they're probably quite happy to walk away with what they spent on it.
And I think as well with Wokingham, you've got a lot of stuff that was built in the last 15 years. But if you look at the other side of things, your 1930s up to maybe 2000s sort of build, in the past, what you would normally see with those families that we're talking about upsizing, they would go over the garage or go out the back. It's so expensive to do an extension now or to do a refit, then what's the point? Just move.
Yes.
Because your blueprint stays the same. You know, you can overextend a property, can't you? But where an extension, maybe you could get a half decent extra bedroom and an ensuite for 30 grand 15 years ago, is 95 now. You might as well just buy a bigger house because it's cheaper to do it. So that will see a lot more upsizes next year, I think, as well.
I think so. And the best way for people to look at that is look at what a pounds per square foot on the average house price would be. So we work on that quite regularly based on area specific, but also some get a little bit more than others based on location, more central versus further out. And they'll range anywhere generally between 400 and late £400 a square foot. So let's do the middle ground of 450. And if you're having an extension done and you're creating an extra 100 square foot worth of space, or you do 200 square foot worth of space, or 300 square foot worth of space, you times that value by the pounds per square foot, and you go, am I paying more than that to have the work done? Generally, yes, you are. And then you factor in what the stamp duty would be to get you that house above, and then you can sit there, do that maths really quickly, and realise actually it's probably cheaper for me to move house than it is to get my house extended.
Especially now they haven't messed around with the stamp duty stuff as well, which is what we're thinking. And the mortgages seem positive as well. Like, we obviously get updates all the time as a group, and we can relay that to clients. And I know you put it on your socials, but affordability for lending is up. Rates have marginally come down throughout the year. house prices are around where they were this time last year. There's not a drastic change there. So if prices are the same and people can get more money to borrow, and earnings have gone up and inflation's a bit kind of where it sits, well then, you know, the base rates changed throughout the year as well in a positive direction. Mortgage swap rates have gone down throughout the year. So there's more buying power as well. And the evidence shows that, because statistically stuff is selling and there's a big deficit over the last 6 weeks of people not coming to the market. So that's where you want to have hyper-local conversations with you guys on valuations, but get those valuations done before Christmas. Find out what you can do to your house while you're off work, and then get ahead of the curve, because you don't want to be the house where there's 6 or 7 down your road that's also on the market. You want to be the one with the sold board looking at the ones up the road, trying to buy them. That's the key.
And I look at this market as one thing that we've struggled with when market fluctuation is so prevalent is that the first time buyer sits at home talking to their parents going, there's no point buying now, let's wait for the property prices to come down even more. So over the past few years, we've proven that that's not the case in the tougher years that we've had. And in actual fact, the first-time buyer market at the moment is really quite good. Like if I looked at a 95% loan-to-value mortgage, which Tom sent out some information on yesterday, and I might get it slightly wrong, but I'm sure it was about 4.1% for a 95% loan-to-value mortgage for anybody. But from a first-time buyer perspective, the stress tests have changed, and the ability to borrow more money is now better. So you're able to borrow more money, put less down, not pay as much as you were in monthly repayments than you were a year ago, and property prices haven't moved. So if I'm a first-time buyer, now's the perfect time over the next 2 to 3 months to probably take advantage of that.
And rents have gone up 5 or 6%.
Goodness me, yeah.
So
exactly
your rent is more expensive if you're not living at home as well. So there's pendulum swings in that direction. You know, 100%.
And whilst living at home's great because you get your washing done for you, you don't want to keep doing that all the time, do you?
Not if you're 42.
Yeah, cool. That's memories of living with my in-laws for 7 months coming back.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, if you're watching this.
So overview on maybe next year and how the market looks from our perspective is interest rates are lower, stress testing is easier, and the ability to borrow more is greater. Not everybody wants to borrow loads and loads, but the ability is there if you want to do it. House prices haven't changed over the past couple of years. There's been marginal small growth. We're talking a percentage point or two. My feel is that you may see peaks and troughs throughout next year, but not big waves, big middle of the sea waves where they're up here 1 minute and down there the next. It's going to be a very gradual change throughout the year. And I think the prices, if you're looking to think about when you can get more for your property, I think it's your probably 27, 28 years. But I do worry that if anybody's waiting to get the most for their house and they're upsizing, they're only going to price themselves out as it gets higher. So it could be a really interesting year next year.
Yeah, there's another source to add to that as well, which is the Renters' Rights Bill is making it harder for landlords to evict tenants in a flexible way, which might be the end of that whole generation again. Typical baby boomer, 60, 65, own that buy-to-let for 25 years, mortgage-free. They might be looking at it now and going, look, I paid £3.26 for this and it's worth 300 grand. Now might be the time to get rid of it. So there's another source of listings coming through the Renters' Rights Bill as well, I think. So, yeah, I think for Wokingham next year, it'd be very interesting, but I think you have to be quite strategic with your move, especially if you're upsizing in Wokingham or downsizing, same applies. But you've got to be in the buying power position because there'll also be a lot of tenants coming to the market, you know, because it is now more affordable as a first-time buyer, like you said, but harder to stay renting.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap up, and maybe we can revisit this in 12 months to see how this how our thoughts and opinions have played out. But thanks ever so much for joining us, Ian.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll catch up in the next one.